The Force can have a strong influence on the weak-minded, but even a simple farm boy can tell that some Star Wars games are much worse than others. It stands to reason that if you make over 100 games based on one property, some of them are bound to be pretty terrible. Star Wars is returning to movie theaters worldwide this week, and if you're feeling like digging up some old classics to keep the nostalgia going, we suggest staying away from these. They're not as painful as the prequels, but they're still pretty awful. Considering all he's seen and done, Obi-Wan definitely deserves his own game. LucasArts had the right idea centering on him to tell the story of Episode 1 in a third-person action game, but this Padawan is definitely not ready to face the trials ahead. Lightsaber movement is limited to the right analog stick in a failed attempt to simulate actual saber movement. There's a nifty deathmatch mode where you get to square off against several Jedi at once, and the events leading up to the first prequel are kind of interesting, but you're better off moving along. In 1997, LucasArts experimented with a pair of games intended to be played in a window on your desktop, like Minesweeper. They modeled one on Indiana Jones, and the other on the untold training adventures of Luke and his master Yoda. The levels are procedurally generated, offering a slightly different experience in each level, but the gameplay is too basic to hold your interest for long. Size matters not, unless you're talking about Star Wars games. Something this small isn't worth your time. A kart racer based on the Star Wars universe sounds like a great idea, but Super Bombad Racing is just a bad bomb. It focuses too heavily on the prequels, missing the opportunity to bring in characters from other chapters of Star Wars lore. The levels get repetitive very quickly, and the controls are nowhere near as pleasant as Mario Kart or even Crash Team Racing. It's not even fun in a playful way. You're much better off snickering through something like LEGO Star Wars than taking one lap through this missed opportunity. The original Force Unleashed offered an exciting and unique twist on existing Star Wars lore. It also produced a solid gameplay foundation for future installments. All the pieces were set for a successful franchise until the release of Force Unleashed 2. The game is essentially unfinished, with a story that stains the very name of Star Wars. Even the insultingly short length of 5 hours is far too long to spend in this forgettable sequel. Like other movie adaptations, The Phantom Menace suffers the same fate of being rushed and boring. The graphics are hideous, the characters look like melted wax, and the environments are mushy and washed out. The gameplay is clunky. Moving a character through each environment is a chore with bad collision detection, frustrating combat, and one of the most bizarre cameras in any Star Wars game. The only redeeming part is that you can wipe out a lot of NPCs. We need to lock this away in a vault somewhere, right next to the holiday special.
Move the reticle, you can.
Recalling the co-op platforming that made Jedi Power Battles one of the better games based on the prequels, Republic Heroes takes the Cartoon Network Clone Wars show and runs it through drab levels with sloppy platforming and boring combat. To its credit, there are several playable characters, including clone troopers, but it's a mystery to us how Chrome Studios and LucasArts was able to take such a colorful show and turn it into such depressingly dull environments. If you want to fill in the gaps between episodes 2 and 3, just watch the TV series. When the Wii Remote was first introduced, a lot of Star Wars fans saw the controller easily transforming into a lightsaber before the end of the console's life cycle. Lightsaber Duels was supposed to fulfill that fantasy, but it gave us all the finesse and accuracy of a smuggler tearing open the innards of a tauntaun. Adding insult to injury, it's solely based on the characters that fought in the Clone Wars, ignoring the Jedi we actually want to play as. But when it comes to motion-based Star Wars games, this is actually not the worst. Star Wars Kinect was first pitched at E3 2010 with a grand lie, as Cirque du Soleil gymnasts pretended for the audience that this game would finally allow us to all become fluid Jedi Knights. 1 year later, we watched as a proud-looking actor fumbled his way through the newly apparent flaws of the hardware. Almost another year after that, we all got to try this game for ourselves, and the dream was finally dead. Today we're left with a feeble, sloppy package of motion gaming experiences that are best left unseen. The idea of Star Wars characters brawling in a 3D fighting game sounds like a promising one. Masters of Teras takes this basic concept and does absolutely nothing with it. The game looks terrible, plays terrible, has an awful frame rate, and lightsabers act more like baseball bats than anything else. It's one of those rare games that gets almost nothing right. All we wanted to do was battle with our favorite characters. What we got is a hot pile of garbage, ready for the trash compactor. There have been some bad Star Wars games on this list, games that have taken incredible opportunities and wasted them, but Flight of the Falcon is nearly unplayable. Instead of using GBA technology to create an action platformer or some other genre the system can actually handle, developer Pocket Studios tried to recreate memorable missions in Han Solo's Pride and Joy. The result is hard to look at, a jumbled mess of pixels being thrown your way while you try in vain to make the Falcon go where you want. What a piece of junk. Kyle Bossman sums up his 10 favorite things from 2015 as the year comes to a close, and we spent an evening handing out several awards for the best pieces of video game advertising released in the last 12 months and our first Game Trailer Awards. We'll see you next week for another GT Countdown.